In over 2 years, I've ran up dozens of Klaviyo accounts from 0 to 30, 40, and even over 50% Klaviyo revenue. And I spent the last month breaking down what I've learned working with 6, 7, and 8-figure brands to create the simplest and most efficient 4-step framework that you can use to guarantee that your brand hits over 30% Klaviyo revenue in as little time as possible. Now, this 4-step framework, it's going to work in any e-commerce niche, whether you're selling pet products, baby clothes, beauty products, or honestly anything in between. And it's going to work for all account sizes, whether your store is at 20 grand per month or $2 million per month. As long as you can write English at a 3rd grade level, you're going to be able to craft emails that generate you thousands of dollars in revenue with just a few hours of work every week. So if you're looking to run up your Klaviyo account in as little time as possible, let me show you how it can be very comprehensive. So this is going to be exactly how to go from 0 to 32% Klaviyo revenue as quickly as possible. This is going to be a guide more geared for beginners, but honestly, there's a lot of really core foundational stuff that is going to apply regardless of what your proficiency inside of Klaviyo is going to be. So the 4-step framework, you're going to learn about how to create a high converting pop-up. You're going to create your core flows. You want to be sending 2 to 4 campaigns every single week. And then lastly, you want to be keeping your deliverability in check. So we're going to go through each of these things step by step and starting with number 1, which is creating a high converting pop-up. So an online e-commerce store, if you're not having any sort of top of funnel traffic, right, whether from Facebook or Meta or something like that, if you don't have any traffic, you're honestly just not going to survive as a store. So the pop-ups, they are the traffic to your email list, and without them, your email list is literally just going to die. So pop-up forms, they're what keeps your list growing with new and potential customers who we can nurture to buy your products. And it also directly impacts your most profitable flow by far, which is the welcome series. So to really drive that point home, I created this quick little table together. So why do pop-ups matter? This is actually a real example that we have from a client. The only thing is I simplified the numbers just for ease, but we can look here, right? So we've got the metric, we've got the opt-in rate, and we've got a 5% versus a 10% opt-in rate. With everything being equal, we've got views at 10,000, meaning with a 5% opt-in rate, we've got 500 submissions with a 15.1% place order rate, which is pretty common actually for a first email in a welcome flow. This client was doing about 10.2K in revenue. Now, again, everything else being the same, the only variable here is 5 to 10%. With a 10% opt-in rate and the same amount of views, we now have grown our list by 1,000 new subscribers instead of 500. And we've literally doubled the revenue that we're getting from our first email. So this is one of the highest leverage points that you can have in your entire email marketing strategy, which is why we actually have this as first. The industry standard for opt-ins is around 3 to 4%. So if your store is currently sitting here, honestly, that's pretty good. But what we are shooting for is anywhere from 6 to 12, all the way up to even 15%. Really does depend on your industry though. So yeah, if you're like a store and you're hitting around 2 to 3% consistently, don't stress too much because it actually just might be dependent on your industry. Okay, so next here, I want to discuss what your most important factor is, and that is your offer. So your offer, it is going to dictate 90% of the success of your pop-up. So just looking at these two forms here, right? Both honestly pretty decent forms. Obviously the color is different, but aside from that, like which one do you actually think is going to perform better? So we've got here on the left side, we've got get $1 off. And on the right side here, we've got get 90% off. Obviously, the 90% is going to do a lot better, but we don't want to be giving customers products for free. And we need to find that sweet spot. So for your own brand, what's an offer that's going to be tempting enough, still worth it for our margins? And now this is going to be different for every brand, but we have a few offers that we can discuss. So firstly, we've got percentage off. This is like the OG, right? Like you've probably purchased something using a 10% off code. You've probably seen these everywhere. Because it's a percentage, it actually scales depending on your brand. So honestly, it probably is going to be the best place to start. For some brands that I've seen, it might convert at 4 to 8%. But for some previous clients, we've literally seen this convert as high as like 8 to 10 to even 12%. Here's a little example for you as well. Nice and simple, nice and easy little code here. And yeah, moving on. So we've got an X dollar off. Now, this is going to be a flat discount. This number is obviously going to be different on, it's going to be different depending on your brand rather. So if your store is selling products for like 1K, you're probably not going to incentivize anyone doing like a $5 off. So obviously scale it to what makes sense for your brand. But a good reference point and a good place to start is by actually calculating what your AOV or your average order value is. So if your average order value is around $50, then do 10% of that and use that as a starting point. If it's $50, test $5. If your average order value is $500, then try test 50. Now this is our favorite offer by far. This is honestly what we have the most success with. This is the creme de la creme, which is a free gift with purchase. So it's not going to apply for every brand. Just depending on what your brand and what you sell, you might be able to do it, you might not be able to do it. But there's a lot of benefits to this type of offer. So firstly, it's a lot cheaper for you to fulfill. You're going to get much better contribution margin as well because customers are going to get more value. So instead of, let's say, giving $10 off as a flat 10% or a flat $10 value off, you can actually give a product that costs you $5 to make, but now it's going to have a $15 value. You can also just clear out excess stock. So if you're overstocked on something and you kind of just want to get rid of it, you can add that as a free gift with purchase. Or if you're a consumer packaged goods brand, or if people actually can finish your product and buy more, by giving them a small sample, it now opens up the conversation for you to reach back out to them and say, hey, I saw you tried our cereal box or a new flavor. How did you like it? And so you can see here, this is by far one of our most successful offers that we do on the pop-up. For this client in particular, we get about a 13.5% submission rate, which equals a 2.3K growth or submission on 17,000 views. So lots of people there that we can retarget down the future. Now, there are a few things to consider with your pop-ups, which is firstly, you want to make sure that you're optimizing your pop-ups for mobile. So more than 85% of shoppers now actually shop on mobile, meaning it's not enough now to have one pop-up and then just have it display on mobile and desktop because they both have different behaviors that you want to account for. So you want to have a separate form, one specifically targeting desktop, and you want to ensure that each pop-up is only targeting a desktop or mobile. So you can see here, again, this is live data that we have with a current client. The 1.4 here that we have is the desktop version, and it only has 243 submissions versus the mobile pop-up that we have, which has over 2,000 submissions, literally more than 90% of our submissions in total. And it actually has a much higher conversion rate as well. So when you're setting up your pop-up, you want to adjust your pop-up behaviors as such. And these numbers are really going to vary depending on your brand, but you want to have a 6 to 10 second pop-up window. You want to have 30 to 60% scroll. Probably do a higher on mobile just because your natural inclination, thanks to the TikTok and Reels and whatever else, is to just scroll more on your phone. And then exit intent on desktop. Obviously for mobile, you can't track that yet, but at some point down the line, that might happen. Okay, so let's have a little checkpoint here. So for your pop-ups, you first want to have decided what your pop-up offer is going to be. Are you going to do 10%? You're going to do $1 off? Are you going to do a free gift with purchase if it's possible for your brand? 2, you want to have created a separate pop-up, both for mobile and desktop. Very, very important. And 3, you want to have actually attached the above behaviors and basically give yourself a starting point to see what's actually going to work well for your brand. Now, that is quite in depth already, but if you do need more help with this, we do actually have a specific guide on pop-ups, and I'm going to link that one in description below. Okay, so you've now got a high converting pop-up that's going to convert your web traffic into subscribers. But now you're actually going to need to set up the mechanism that is going to convert them into sales. And here's exactly how to do that. This section is going to be about setting up your core flows. So before I get into it, I want to actually kind of explain what automated flows actually are. So flows are automated emails, and they specifically trigger after certain behaviors have occurred on your website. So let's say someone's been on your website, they've checked out a few products, and then they like something and they add it to their cart, but didn't check out. So that's the point where someone might get an email like this, which we've created, and that's going to remind them to come back and complete their purchase. And it's going to have a dynamic Klaviyo block, complete with a CTA, and that's going to direct them directly back to the checkout page. Now, this is something that happens completely on autopilot, and it works 24/7. And this is where the magic of flows actually is. So setting up your flows correctly can automate 10 to 15% of your store's total revenue, and again, completely on autopilot, which is ridiculous. So here's a bit of a crash course on the 6 core flows that you're going to need for your own store. Now remember, you're probably going to see a lot of things about like, oh, there's all of these super unique and intricate flows. We can like do really in-depth segmentation and all that. And like, while it is true, we are optimizing for efficiency here. Like, we just want to get you from 0 to 30 as quickly as possible. So here is exactly how many emails you want for your 6 core flows. So firstly, for your welcome series, just do 3 emails, right? You want to have an intro, you want to tell people about your offer. You want to give people a little bit of context about the brand. And if it does apply to your brand, you can do an intro on the founder. And then thirdly, you want to tell people actual buying questions, right? Like, you want to answer that for people. So tell them what the shipping policy is. How long is it going to take? Do you guys have any guarantees? Are there any reviews? Are there any risk reversals that are unique to your brand? Then for your abandoned cart and your abandoned checkout, they are 2 separate flows, which we'll get into later. But each of these, you'll want 3 emails to start. So firstly, you want to do just a simple reminder to check out or to return to the cart. You're then going to jump into showing any reviews, any FAQs. And lastly, you want to provide maybe an incentive if that's actually going to apply for your brand. But you can also let people know about shipping time and any guarantees or risk reversals, just as like a nice little push at the end. For your post-purchase thank you emails, this one's pretty simple. Just do 2 emails here. This one's going to be a very simple thank you for purchasing. And you want to split it off just based on how many purchases people have made. And then you can actually also just go for the upsell right after that and just show people any related products they might like, potentially even ask for a review at this point here. Now get into the last few emails here, the last few flows. For review product, we'd recommend starting off with 3 emails. Your first email is going to be a very simple looking for something, and then maybe you kind of just pitch a few bestsellers as well. From there, you want to do a reminder of benefits of maybe the key products that you sell on your store, push some reviews, and lastly, if this applies to your brand, you can push an incentive, maybe answer a couple FAQs, and add a nice little touch of urgency towards the end there as well. Now for this last flow here, your core flow number 6. This is actually something that we set up exclusively for clients. It's a very, honestly, pretty lucrative flow that we set up. And there's a lot of game in here with just 2 emails. So this one, it's actually segment based, which meaning depending on the behaviors people take on your website, we're actually going to know a few things about them. So you want to set up this segment right here for your potential purchases. And now you can see here, this is something that we use specifically for people who are new to the brand. New, never place an order at all. So place 0 orders over all time. From there, we can see they've been active on your website 2 times the last 30 days. Maybe they've interacted with your emails a couple of times over the last 30 days. Maybe they've even added products or checked out or started a checkout process or viewed your products a couple of times in the past 30 days, but they've still never made a purchase. These are people that we classify as potential purchase because this is all buying behavior. So the 2 emails that we want to send them are firstly an incentive reminder, and this can actually just exactly match whatever your welcome series offer is, whether that's going to be 10% off or maybe a free gift purchase or whatever it might be. And then you can send a follow-up if they don't bite on that first email. And this one's just going to be really simple, an incentive expiring, just reminding them that it might end soon. Or if you want, you can also increase the incentive if that works for your brand. Now, just as a little example of how effective this actually is, this is one of our clients. We have this exact flow set up, and in 365 days. Yeah, so in about a year, I had to do the math in my head, but in about a year, you can see here that this 2-step flow has literally generated, I think about 50 grand in revenue, just from reminding people that they actually have an offer. So the potential purchase flow, it is one of our hidden gems. So absolutely consider this as a call flow for you. Now, if you were doing the math, this is quite a few emails. There's 16 emails total that you need to set up in your call flows. And yes, it is going to seem like a lot, but again, remember, we're actually trying to shoot for 10 to 15% of your store's revenue completely on autopilot. Alrighty, so from here, let's jump into Klaviyo together, and I'm going to show you exactly how to set up a flow. I'm going to show you as well the process of setting up emails, just so that you can do it yourself. And the beauty of this is that once you learn one email, you kind of learn how to create all of them. So we'll get into it together. But before we start, there's a few things that I kind of just want to address first. So you might be wondering, do I need to be an expert copywriter? Do I need to be an amazing designer to set up these emails? The truth of it is, yes, better copy, amazing designs, it is going to improve your email results. But honestly, just by having these inside of Klaviyo, you're going to get most of the benefit of it anyway. All you need is a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, and you're going to be able to set all of these call flows up. Or if you're not sure how to do this, maybe you don't have time, maybe you don't have capacity, or honestly, like maybe you just want to work with a team of proven experts that can do it, you can book a call with us. I'll leave the link here. This doc is also going to be in the description, or the link will be in the description. And we'll create you a full custom email strategy for your brand. We do guarantee 25 to 100K in monthly email revenue in under 60 days. But anyway, I'm going to jump into Klaviyo and let's see how it's done. Let's get into some of the fun stuff of Klaviyo, which is actually writing and designing emails. Now, before we actually get inside Klaviyo, I do want to first preface that every email is generally going to follow a pretty similar structure. So super simple, but how that's going to look is you're going to have a logo at the top. You want to have then a headline. You then want to have a header image. You're going to have a CTA. You're going to have a short and simple piece of body copy. You're going to have another CTA. Here, you might have a couple USPs. Maybe you might show off some products, maybe some reviews, some guarantees. It's going to be dynamic every email. And then finally, you're going to finish off with a footer. Now, again, the process you learn of creating emails in this video, it is going to apply to every single email in every single flow. And feel free to switch it up as you see fit. Okay, so with that out the way, let's actually jump in. So this is a very old Klaviyo account that we have access to. This actually is no longer an operating store, but what that does give us is access to data so that we can show you how to actually do the dynamic Klaviyo tags, which we'll show you in a sec. But one of the awesome things with Klaviyo, and one of the reasons why you don't need to be an A-grade designer, is the Klaviyo templates are actually pretty good. Honestly, they've come a long way. So in your Klaviyo account, what you want to do is you want to look at your templates. Once you get to your templates here, you will then go over to basic layout, or honestly, you can even just look at what they've got here. And some of them are actually not bad. But the one that I like is the basic layout here. And just to sort of show you what that might look like. Here is a sample that we've done for Oreos, because I really like Oreos. So with Oreos here, you can see that this is actually a pretty decent looking email. And it actually ticks all the boxes that we need. When you put it in preview as well, you can see pretty clearly that it actually flows very well as an email. And even when you go over to mobile, it automatically is optimized for mobile, which is amazing. So now let's actually get into the weeds together and let's build this one from scratch. So over here, we're going to go over to the basic layout. You can see there's a few ones here, but what this one is actually this one column layout. So we're going to click on this one here. Let's use the template. And now I already have the assets preloaded just for ease of this video. But for you, you might need to actually get a few of your assets for your brand. You might also need to write a little bit of copy, but nothing honestly too ridiculous. As long as you have something there that looks professional and looks on brand, you'll be sweet. Okay, so starting with the structure here, there's a few things which I want to point out, which is this banner at the top, free shipping on orders over $49. You can leave that there. That is completely fine if that's something that you want to do. Personally, for this brand, I probably wouldn't for Oreos, just because everyone knows what Oreos are. But if you're a brand where you really want to push your AOV, then you might want to leave that there. For now though, we're going to delete that and delete this horizontal rule. Now for the header bar, you're going to see here by default, Klaviyo actually puts all these extra buttons in there. So shop, about, new, contact. My recommendation is to actually just get rid of these. And the reason for that is because we don't want people to be clicking up here. We want people to be clicking this big, nice shop now button that actually takes them to our products. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the side and we're just going to start deleting these links. And you can see now we just have the logo in place. As we scroll down, you're going to see now there's a few things here in the default design, and we just need to start changing up the template. So over here, what we're going to start with is actually just putting in this image on the header. So we're going to go to replace. We're going to look at a few images which we've just uploaded. And now you're going to see this one here. Perfect. Let's do this one. So depending on the asset that you put in, you might need to crop it just to make sure that it fits. But now we've got that in there and it looks nice and clean. You're going to notice there's going to be this kind of ugly gray thing on in the background. So what that one actually is just a default section setting. So you can see here, right, like as I change this up, that's going to be red, that's going to be black, or whatever else that might be. So how we're going to do it is we're just going to switch this over to white, or in the case of Oreos, because they've got this really nice blue, we can actually change that over and make it a little bit more branded. Let's just say something like that. You can obviously use the color coded hex here, but do something that's going to actually be branded and work for you. Now, next step from here, I would actually say it's time to switch the logo up the top. Now, I've actually downloaded the logo just here, and obviously that's going to be pretty big. You probably don't want it to be that wide. So what you want to do then is you want to adjust the max width just to make sure that that's going to fit nice and square. So I probably recommend starting at 150. You might need to guess check it here and there. 150 I think looks okay, and usually it's big enough for mobile and desktop. It's a nice in between. Now, time to start switching up this copy. So what we would recommend is always, if this is for example a welcome series email, you want to just lead with the most important thing in that email. So how we do it is in the headline, we're going to make it nice and branded. So I'm just going to copy paste the copy over. But in here, we want to be straight to the point and we want to tell people exactly what they're here for. So if we go over to this email that I wrote up on the slide, we're going to go here and we're just going to copy paste this over, just to save us a little bit of time for this demo. Cool. Now we can see here, we are just going to have to fix up some of this a little bit. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Cool. The world's #1 cookie. I actually love Oreos. So for this, let's switch over to Poppins, because I think it just looks a little bit more friendly. And now we put this over to the middle. See, as we look here, we can see that the padding looks a little bit odd. So we might need to drop that one down a bit, just so we can get everything in one line. So now that looks nice and clean. Now at the top, we have let's get started. And let's just change that to say hello to change that over to Poppins as well. So I'm just using Poppins here just because it's something that looks nice and friendly inside of Klaviyo, but obviously you can do whatever what is actually going to be closest to your brand. Beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to say use cookie 10 for 10% off. Have that nice and obvious. So now for here, we can actually just change the CTA because we do want to re-emphasize what the offer is. So this one just might be get 10% off. Nice and simple. So for the button, let's make this one stand out a little bit more, make that white. For the corner radius, this is actually just what changes this round little section here. So if we want to make something that's super round, we can do it like that. And I can see it's very rounded. Now let's change this to just black so we can get that back. We'll keep consistent with the poppins. And then maybe let's make this a little bit bigger as well, just so people can actually see what we're talking about. Now, I'm personally not a fan of how wide this one is, so we can switch it up. We can get something that's fit to text, and then you'll see here the inner padding section. By adjusting this one, you can actually make the button a little bit wider. So let's say, for example, we want it really wide. We can do this as 50, and then that'll actually fatten it up a little bit. So beautiful. Now this is what our header is going to look like. And immediately, it's very obvious. You can see right off the bat what the offer is. We've got a really cool lifestyle shot. So now, as we go down here, there's a couple things that we're going to need to chuck in as well. So to be honest, if you wanted to shorten this up as well, you could probably just get rid of this section, get rid of that section there as well. And then you can just have something there that literally emphasizes the offer. But we're going to at least do one just to make it look pretty. So we're going to go in and let's go in with this pink one just to make it look a little bit different. Now, again, I'm just going to copy paste the copy which I wrote earlier, which is super simple. And we're just going to talk about how it's a great lunchbox treat. And now the copy that you would want to put yourself for these emails, honestly, it's just going to be up to your brand. So I wouldn't stress this too much, but you'd probably want to do a little bit of a short introduction on your brand. You can keep it brief, keep it concise, and you should be just fine. Now we'll go back into Poppins. Let's do like medium. This one do be a bit small, so we do want to have that as a bit bigger. Let's make that bold, and then maybe we can make this a little bit smaller just so it looks good. On the go, delicious lunchbox treat. I think we have a bit too much padding here because I do want that all in one line. Okay, maybe that needs to be smaller still. There we go. And now you can see here we have the first fold. We are then going to have a bit of an image, a little bit of an introduction. We can also have another button here. We might need to make this one a bit more rounded just to match the top. Cool. And now this email is looking pretty good. Obviously, we haven't been adding any links or anything yet, just because I don't want to actually send people to Oreos. But for your own brand, you do want to be adding alt text, whatever the image is actually going to be. So for this one, for example, we might say wrapped Oreo lolly. And then we'll chuck in the link address right there. Now, after this second bit of CTA, here is where you might want to add in another review, or maybe a person who's actually eating the Oreos, or a lifestyle image of some sort. For this one, we are going to crop it just to make sure it fits within the email design. Just like that. I think that looks okay. Beautiful. And now here is where we can add something nice and simple, just like a review. So we'll go into here. Let's get some stars going on and put 555 stars. And we'll say review from Old Mate. So we'll say most delicious cookies I've ever had in my life. My go-to ice cream flavor. So you can have something very simple like that. And now we've added reviews. We've added basically something to make this email a little bit more powerful. Now, if we want to do that further still, what we can do is add an image around here. And we can add our USP. So for example, many brands now offer buy now, pay later options. For example, Afterpay. So we can chuck in something like that. This has a kind of ugly background. So we'll change the block to make it white. Now we're going to have this Afterpay button just like this. It's a little bit big though, so let's try and make that a bit smaller. Cool, so now that is perfectly sized. And then maybe we can even add one final CTA towards the bottom here. And have Afterpay right under it. So this is a white button. Let's just do like a black one, for example. And there you go. So now what do we have as an actual email here? So we've got the logo at the top. We've got a header image. We've got our subheaders. We've got the offer very clearly stated. We've got a nice, big, really obvious button to use. We kind of intro the products a little bit. We've got some more lifestyle imagery. We've got a review. We've got another CTA. And now we have a buy now, pay later option. Followed by the footer. And maybe for this section here, we can say, don't love your Oreos? Return them uneaten, of course, within 14 days. And now we also have a risk reversal or maybe a guarantee right next to the CTA where we want it. So this now is actually going to be a perfect email, and you can literally apply this to every single email that you create for yourself. Now for this next thing, which I'm going to show you, is how do we actually get the cool dynamic stuff going on for your abandoned carts, for your viewed product, your browse abandonments. Basically, how do you actually tell the customer exactly what they've ordered, and how do you show them, or how do you take them back to the exact product? Okay, so what you want to do, and again, this is going to be the same exact process for every single email that you do, is you're going to open up a new section, and let's say here we do like a little table. Now on this left side here, let's do the image, and on the right side here, we'll do the text. Honestly, it doesn't really matter either way you do it. This way I think just looks a little bit cleaner. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up a preview on the top right here. Now you're going to head over to event, and if you're using Shopify, you want to make sure that you're using a Shopify metric. If you're using WooCommerce or any other platform, you want to ensure that you're choosing the correct metric. Now, this store actually does use WooCommerce, so I'm going to click the start checkout here. But if your brand is using Shopify, which is honestly what we recommend, you want to be choosing checkout started. So for this demo, we're just going to do started checkout. And now, once you click here, you're going to be able to see all the people who have actually, you're going to see the data of people who have actually clicked on or who have started an abandoned checkout process. Now, there's going to be a few pieces of info here, which is, for example, you're going to see the name, and you're going to be able to see the actual image of what they have added to their checkout. So, for example, here, you're going to see this URL, and this is going to be live data as well for literally the exact product that they added to their checkout. So we're going to click on the URL. Right here, we're going to find the image, click on URL just like that. And now we're going to go over to this dynamic block, click on upload an image. And instead of uploading an image here, what we want to do instead is click on dynamic image. We're going to copy and paste this dynamic value right here. Okay, beautiful. So that's part one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the exact same metric, start checkout. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find the name of the product that was added to checkout. So just like this, name. Now we're going to go to the text side, add this one in, and we can make this one look a little bit nicer, right? Make this heading 1, make it a little bit bigger, and maybe we just downsize it. And so now, when we go into preview, when we go into the event, and when someone actually adds something to checkout but doesn't complete their purchase, what they're now going to get is a dynamic email that sends them info related to whatever they actually did. So let's say, for example, again, we go here to start a checkout. Now you're going to be able to see that old mate Patricia has added these cans, which is called the Crunchy Bliss Sparkling Lavender Lemon with CBD as a 6-pack. She's going to be able to dynamically get this in her cart. And also from this section here, what we can do is we can send her specifically or exactly back to her checkout. So let me find that here. Cool. So there's going to be a URL link here. I think my face is actually covering it, but you'll be able to see it for yourself. When you get it here, we can actually just chuck it directly in the link address. And now we have a dynamic and a fully built email, which is going to be the most relatable to people because it's going to send their exact products with the exact name, with the exact image to them exactly when they have it. So it is going to be the exact same process for every single flow that you set up, whether it's going to be a banded cart, abandoned checkout, like what we just did together, or viewed product. You are going to get the exact same info in the exact same way. So hope that was helpful. Hope that was quite in depth. But we've just been through an absolute journey together, jumping inside of Klaviyo, building emails. And I hope that was helpful. And I hope you learned a lot, because that is the exact process that you're going to be rinse and repeating for all 16 core emails that you're going to be chucking into your core flows. So again, literally the exact same process. Don't overthink it too much in terms of your designs, in terms of your copy. Again, what's important is that you actually have these emails set up. As long as they look branded, as long as they sound like they're coming from your brand, that is going to do 95% of the job. So before we continue on down this list, there's a bit of a checkpoint that I want to make sure that you have in place. So make sure that these are all in order before skipping on to the next section. So flow checkpoint number 1. You've now created your 6 core flows inside of Klaviyo. This is going to be extremely important because, again, we want to make sure that the core foundations are set up, because that is really how this whole email ecosystem is even going to work. Checkpoint number 2 is you've added dynamic Klaviyo blocks in your abandoned cart, in your abandoned checkout, and your viewed product flows. Now, this is extremely important because if I, as a customer, come on your website and I add, let's just say, Nike shoes to cart and I don't check out, I actually want to get follow-up emails specifically about Nike shoes. If you start sending me things about like a toaster or like an air fryer, it's not really going to make sense. And if anything, it's going to make me think your brand's kind of weird. So try to avoid that as much as possible and make sure that your dynamic Klaviyo blocks are all set up accurately. Third, you set up the true add to cart metric. Now, this is actually very important because it is different to the checkout started metric. Most brands kind of get confused between the two, but these are 2 separate events that happen on your Shopify store. So what you actually want to do is you want to set up the true add to cart metric. Klaviyo have a great resource on how to set this up for any store, which I'm going to link for you in the description below. Now, finally, we want to make sure that you set up this segment for potential purchasers. Again, this is one of the easiest flows to set up. You can quite literally do this as plain text. We have in the past, and it has absolutely killed it. So there's a lot of free revenue on the table here just by reminding people that they have the welcome series offer, especially if they've never purchased before. So definitely set this one up. Now, I do want to link a free resource here because if you've kind of gone down this process, you may have realized that like 16 emails is actually quite a lot to read, a lot to write, a lot to design if you've never created emails before. So to help you out, we've actually do have a high converting email design guide. It's complete with 180 email swipes that we've created internally. And we literally use this every day as a source of infinite inspiration for our own email designs. And you're also going to receive annotated emails, so you can actually get a bit of an insider look behind the thought process whenever we create emails. Okay, so we set up the automations, but what happens if no one ever goes on our website? Like ever? Like if someone hasn't added something to cart, if someone hasn't viewed a product, if someone hasn't enrolled in your welcome series, but we have their email address. This is where we get into campaigns. So let's actually get into that. Now we get on to the next step, or step 3 or 4 of hitting your Klaviyo 30%, which is sending 2 to 4 campaigns per week. Now, before we actually break down how to do that, I want to briefly explain how campaigns are going to differ to flows. And that is, after your flows are set up and live, they're going to continue to work for you 24/7, literally completely on autopilot whenever someone does anything on your website. So someone adds the card, they get an email, that's an automated flow. Campaigns are manual, meaning they're one-time targeted messages. They're going to be sent to specific groups or segments, and these are often seasonal or just related to the actual moment of what's going on. So for example, is it Christmas? Is it Black Friday? Is it Easter? These would all be examples of great campaigns. They are going to take you a bit of time per week to write and design, but obviously they can generate you thousands of dollars in revenue. So here's a couple of examples of campaigns that we've set up. So for example, for Vush, we did their Black Friday strategy, which obviously did very well. For Scooch, they had a product drop for poo bags. Again, that's going to be a sample of a campaign. Very difficult to automate that. And then for uClav, this is an example of Earth Day, which obviously comes once a year. So why are campaigns important? Okay, so flows, like you might be thinking like, okay, well, I've got the automated revenue set up, right? That's 10 to 15% already done there. Why do I need to send campaigns to get that other 15% of revenue? Like I could just let the automations happen. And you could, but you would be missing out on so much revenue, and you're actually going to be missing out on making your flows as effective as they could be. Because flows only send out when people carry out behaviors on your website. But if they're never on your website, then I'm going to enter your flows. And without those consistent touch points that campaigns allow you to actually control, people can literally forget about your brand, right? So campaigns, your consistent touch point you control. So over time, whether you're selling accessories or sunnies or cereal or whatever else, when the time comes and your prospect is out there looking for Fruit Loops or cereal or whatever, if you've been sending them consistent emails, they're actually going to remember your brand and they're more likely to actually buy from you. So campaigns, they're also great for getting people back on your website. And as soon as people take action on your website, they can start to trigger your flows and then be pushed further down their customer journey. So here's a very, very good sample. I'll also just leave this in the description so you can check it out for yourself. But when someone goes on the website, then they can trigger things like an active on-site flow. Then they can start looking at your competitor comparisons. They can start receiving product education. They can be reminded about the offers that they have, eventually leading them to a purchase, and then actually the post-purchase support. So again, that literally would start from a campaign. Now, getting into the actual fun stuff with campaigns. So creating a campaign sending strategy. There's a few things to actually consider here. So firstly, how many campaigns a week do you actually want to send? This is obviously going to depend on multiple things. Firstly, obviously like the time that you have available, because writing campaigns actually does take a bit of time per week. And there might be a few other things that you want to focus on, like acquisition or whatever else. This is also going to depend on how big your email list is. So in general, these are like general guidelines that we follow. Obviously, it's going to vary per brand. But in general, if you have less than 10K emails, just send once or twice a week, that's fine. If you have about 10 to 30,000 emails, you can send 2 to 3 times per week. And you have more than 30,000 emails, you should be at least sending 3 campaigns per week. Now, secondly, who do you actually want to send to? This is going to be your segmentation. Later on, we're also going to cover who not to send to. That's going to be the deliverability section. And what type of content do you actually want to send? Because if you are sending frequently, you are going to want to have a few go-to topics that you can actually talk about. Now, Here are 3 core segments that you want to be setting up. So the exact definitions I'm going to leave in this doc, but for the purpose of this video, the 3 segments that you want to talk to the most are going to be your 120-day engaged. This is literally going to be your most commonly used segment. You want to be talking to your placed order once segment. Let me make this bigger as well, actually. There you go. So you should be able to see that a bit easier. You can see your placed order once. The whole point of this segment is because we want to be talking to people who have made their first purchase and stopped there. And then we want to be nurturing them to get to that second purchase. And then lastly, we want to be talking to potential purchasers. You're actually already going to have this set up if you followed our guide from earlier, so that's all good. Now, what do you actually want to send them? So here are our top 10 performing content themes, and they have no discounts. So you're not going to have to constantly show offers to your list to get them engaged. No, these are actually, honestly, sometimes they perform better than actual campaigns or discount campaigns. So some of these that work really well would be before and afters, right? Short transformation of your product. Us versus them, right? If you guys have common competitors, compare yourselves to them. Don't be afraid of doing it. Meet the ingredients. You can do case study emails. You can do review blasts. Community found hacks is a great one. So if your brand has been around for a while and your community has found really clever ways of using your product, or maybe storing your product, or use cases that maybe you haven't even considered what the product could be used for, actually display that and then give a shout out to your community. That's going to make people feel really involved. How to take care of a product as well is really good for anyone who's purchased, or even just for people who haven't purchased, so they can kind of envision themselves as like, oh, well, I know how to take care of this product, so I can kind of justify buying it. Any lifestyle campaigns, right? Obviously, lifestyle is going to be a huge thing that you're selling. Behind the scenes, right? Get people really involved into your brand. And common industry myth busted. Now, this is a great one that we love to set up. So, our hack for unlimited content ideas, because that's just 10, right? Like, what if you actually need more? What if you're a brand that wants to be sending 3 to 5 times per week? How do you send more campaigns? Now, there's a few things here. So firstly, you want to list the top 5 to 10 questions someone who has never purchased your brand and someone who has purchased from your brand is going to have. You're going to find that new customers are going to want to know things about like shipping costs. They might be a little bit more skeptical about your products. They might need a few more product comparisons. They're probably still checking out the market. They probably need a bit more social proof, right, to actually prove to them this solution actually works. And they're going to need a lot more convincing, because naturally they're just going to be a bit more skeptical. But what you're going to find is existing customers, they want to know that their purchase was actually smart, right? They want to feel, it's the same thing when you buy a product and then you start watching reviews of everyone saying how good that product is, right? Like, you kind of just want to hear a little bit of validation about your own judgment on that purchase. They want to know also about the community that they bought into, and they want to keep up to date about your latest offerings. So if I've just purchased something from you, let's say once or twice, and you actually come out with something new, it's actually more likely that I'm going to be really interested in that over someone who's never purchased before. And so you just really want to make sure that you are not a brand that are just sending constant generic offers and sales pitches, and that's all you ever talk about. Because consistently sending good, entertaining, and valuable content, it's going to be the difference between customers just being like, oh yeah, like that's just brand Z that just does sales and whatever else. Like, customers, they're going to get used to that. They're going to start ignoring your emails. They're going to feel like they're constantly getting spammed, constantly getting sold to. This is where people actually start marking you as spam, and you go downhill from primary to promotions and eventually spam. Versus having your customers actually open your emails and just be like, oh, that's brand Hamilton, beautiful. I don't even need to know what the email is. I just know I'm going to like it. Customers start to look forward to actually reading your newsletter, right? Customers feeling like your brand actually adds value to their lives. and people just feeling loyal to what your brand stands for. And this is the type of stuff that makes them actually come back for repeat purchases. Now, I want to have a little bit of an email marketing checkpoint here, because if you're this deep into the video, you've actually got a pretty good ecosystem going on here. By now, you should have a highly converting pop-up. You should be capturing about 6 to 12% of your website's visitors as subscribers. Now, you should have your call flows working for you 24/7. They should be capturing and recovering revenue for you on autopilot. And you should now have like a really big bank of list of entertaining, interesting, valuable campaign content ready to drive you consistent revenue for the next however long months. But now, to actually ensure the success of this entire ecosystem, the most crucial foundation you need to establish is actually getting your email seen. So from here, let's move on to deliverability. Now moving on to the final pillar of actually getting to 30% Klaviyo revenue is deliverability. So you're probably wondering, like, Don, if deliverability is so important, then why did you leave this until last? And that's because if you're actually following everything in this guide, you're going to be following pretty much most of the core rules for great deliverability already. And that is, one, you want to actually be ensuring that your list is constantly growing with people who are interested in your products. You want to be segmenting your list, and you want to be sending the right message to the right people. And you also want to be tailoring your message. You also want to be tailoring your message depending on who has taken specific behaviors on your list. So if someone has added a product to cart, you want to be actually sending them emails relevant to the behavior that they've taken. And then lastly, you also want to be sending good content that people actually want to read. And this is going to prevent you from being marked as spam by your list. And also it's going to make people actually see your brand, engage with your stuff. And that is going to be a big green flag for ESPs like Google, Yahoo, whatever else. These are the hard parts, right? Because these require you to actually be consistently good over a long period of time. Because once the technical foundations are done, they're pretty much just done forever. So we've got a little bit of a checklist here, and we're going to run through these ones. So firstly, you want to ensure that your DMARC, let me make this bigger. You want to ensure that your DMARC is set up correctly. Now we're going to chuck in a little guide for you. Klaviyo has a really good one. And this is the website that we use for a DMARC inspector, just to make sure that DMARC is set up correctly. Then you want to ensure that your branded sender domain is set up correctly. All right, so this can be found in the accounts section inside of Klaviyo, but you want to head over to your sending domain, and you want to make sure that you have send.yourbrand.com, and you want to have that as active. Without this, you're probably going to be going to spam, so make sure that this is set up. Then you want to ensure that your from address actually matches your sender domain. So in this example here, we're going to have yourbrand.com. And then the from address is actually going to be this section here called default sender email address. So you want to make sure that the domain here, yourbrand.com, matches your branded sending domain here, yourbrand.com. Then you want to ensure that all email links direct the same domain as your website. Now, there are obviously going to be scenarios where you might not want to link people directly to your website. Let's say you want to link people to your Instagram or your TikTok or your other socials or a blog post or whatever it might be. But as a rule, you want 90% of your links to actually direct to your website. So if, let's say, for example, your website URL is yourbrand.com, in your emails, you want to be linking to yourbrand.com/product or /collections or anything of that sort. You then want to ensure that you have a healthy blend of HTML and images in your emails. Now, it doesn't really matter what order. Oh, hello. It doesn't really matter what order specifically. I think he wants to have a little check-in as well. It doesn't really matter specifically what order you have your HTML or your images in your emails. In fact, we tend to use all images from the get-go, and then we have HTML towards the end. As long as you have a good mix of both, that's what that's what I guess email providers are actually going to care about. Then lastly, you want to monitor your key email metrics, right? So for open rates, just across the board, you you want 40% plus over all your flows and your campaigns. Then you want to make sure that your spam rates, all right, you want this under 0.02%. Then your bounce rate, you want to keep this under 0.05%. So nice, simple, easy metrics for you to follow there. And finally, for your email exclusions, because it's not always about who you send to, sometimes it's also just about who you don't send to. So you want to set up these 2 exclusion lists, and you want to ensure to always exclude them from your campaigns, no exceptions. And the 2 that you're going to have is bounced emails. These emails never actually get delivered because they just bounce back. It's sort of like when you try to send someone an email and you put like a .co instead of .com. That email is going to bounce back. That email is never actually going to get delivered. And then you want to also set this up, which is unengaged subscribers. Now, the values for received emails is going to vary per brand. Like if you're a brand that's never ever sent out an email in your life, you probably need to reduce these numbers. But let's say you're a brand that sends out 5 to 8 campaigns per month. Still reasonable. So for this example, you might do received email is 80 in the last year. And then they've clicked your email or opened your email 0 times in the last 6 months. So if someone's never engaged with your emails in the past 6 months and you send 8 campaigns a month, they're probably not gonna check out your emails anymore. So it's pretty safe to just exclude them from it. And that is it. So I hope you found this genuinely valuable, right? This is, you've been listening to me yap on for a while. So look, if after all this, after you've gone through this full training and you're still not sure how to run up your Klaviyo account to 30% plus or more, maybe you don't have time, maybe you don't have capacity, or maybe you just want to work with a team of experts, you can just book a call with us here. Now, I've got the link here. You can visit our website, hamiltonemails.co, or this link will be in the description or in this doc. We're going to create you a full custom email strategy for your brand. And depending on your brand size, we guarantee to add 25K to 100K a month in monthly email revenue in under 60 days. So other resources that might help you, I'm just going to relink these ones here, but these are basically spread out throughout the guide. So we've got a high converting email design guide. So if you're creating your flows and you're stuck kind of for inspo on copy or what your emails might look like, you can definitely double check that one there. We've got a segmentation guide as well. So if you do want to be sending more frequent campaigns, segmentation starts to become a much bigger factor. So we've got this as a guide. And then finally, we've got a pop-up guide here. This is again going to be really crucial for actually making sure that your email list grows. So we've got a full guide for you here. Now for my other links, you can subscribe to our newsletter here. It's just going to be at retentionletter.com. You can follow me on Twitter. I am RamoFlow. And obviously just subscribe to my YouTube channel. I upload twice a week on how you can optimize your store. Anyways, that's it for